their corpses where they store their grain.
Absolutely. Hi, welcome to First Street Congregation, where we start the show before we start the show. So,
Reason to come.
if you've never watched us before, we're geeks. We talked about religion. Pretty much right. Sometimes we talk about politics and things like that. And some of the folks that attend, we're mainly Christian, but every once in a while we get a little bit of atheists show up. We've had Wiccans show up. We've had Native Americans come and speak. A little bit of everything. And if you don't know, we're hosted at the Center of Wichita, which is thecenterofwichita.org. They're a nonprofit that has meeting spaces for all sorts of groups like us and for GLSEN and all sorts of stuff. And the audio guy right now is trying to check to see whether or not we actually have audio, because we've been having audio issues off and on for the last couple of episodes. We think we licked it last week, but we're not positive. And he hasn't given me a thumbs up or anything to say it's actually working yet.
I'm not hearing anything.
You're not hearing anything. Oh, well, it works.
Okay.
We have audio.
There it is.
And it sounds like maybe it's clear. Anyways, check out the Center of Wichita. Because they're a nonprofit, they can always use the help. And they've got great programs like the Get Connected program, which is for LGBT teens to have a safe place to gather, talk, discuss issues. And, teen, it's hard enough being a teen, being an LGBT teen, a lot harder. And as for us, while we may be in an LGBT center, that doesn't really necessarily mean that we're an LGBT congregation. Actually, we just like everybody. I mean, well, except for Trump. We don't like Trump. For the most part, we like everybody. Anyways, we always started off with dumbest religious story of the week. And if I said Ben Carson was the dumbest religious story of the week, well, normally that would be wrong because he's trying to become a politician. But, well, every once in a while he drags religion into it. This last one was a doozy. He believes, this is originally started back in 1998, was the first speech he gave, which talked about, well, I'm just going to quote him in this speech because it's great.
Comedy gold.
It is comedy gold. Let's step. Where's Ben's quote? Ah, here we go. And when you look at the way that the pyramids were made, with many chambers that are hermetically sealed, they'd have to be that way for various reasons. And various scientists have said, well, there were alien beings that came down and they have special knowledge, and that's how, it doesn't require an alien being when God is with you. Okay, does anybody remember what scientists have said that it was done by alien beings? Yes, I understand Spock said it on In Search Of. But that was, no. As a matter of fact, in a trivial bit. So what?
No credible.
No credible scientists. I guess you could theoretically call yourself a scientist very easily until somebody actually calls you on and says where you get the degree. Yeah, okay, so part of my history is I originally went to college to get a degree in archaeology and anthropology. That wasn't what I was going to do for a living. There's no money in that. But it's one of my fascinations. So needless to say, this is some of the areas of study that I've always been interested in. And never once did I look at those things and say, wow, you can put a lot of grain in those things. Because they're not built that way. And needless to say, everybody and their brother has stood up and said, Ben, buddy, no, that's not how those work. Now, his reasoning behind this was because of a biblical story of Joseph building storage units, grain silos, to store grain from the excess of grain for 7 years.
Yeah,
so
but he only had 7 years to do it.
Yes.
That's like us erecting a bunch of, Empire State Buildings to store our grain. A bunch of them. Not just one.
Yes, and it's no. And here's the thing. He's not the only one to have ever thought this. Ben Carson is by no means new. This goes back all the way to 6th century. Not kidding. This is how far this theory goes back. Now, the thing is, and this is a great example of this. This was actually in the 14th century out of a travel log, the book of John Mandeville. I will speak about something else that is beyond Babylon across the Nile River towards the desert between Africa and Egypt. These are Joseph's granaries, which they had made to store the wheat for hard times. They are made of well-hewn stone. 2 of them are amazingly large and tall, and the other not so big. Each granary has an entrance for going inside and a little above the ground, for the land has been ravaged and ruined since the granaries were built. Inside, they are completely full of snakes. Outside these granaries are many writings in different languages. Some say they are tombs of the great lords of antiquity, but it is not true. If there were tombs, they would not be empty inside, nor would they have entrances for going inside, nor are the tombs ever made such a large size and such height, which is why it is not to be believed that they are tombs.
Have we not learned anything since the 6th century?
That's a great.
Sorry.
That's a great question. Because one of the best responses to Ben Carson was that the Egyptians could write, because they did write down how they were, to a certain degree, how they were constructed, what they were constructed for, who constructed them. Now you notice I say, okay, and when I say how they were constructed, no, not the specifics, because aliens built them, or they use vibrational energy, or
they figured people wouldn't forget how to make buildings, things like that.
But I thought I would take a moment. In honor of Ben Carson, to look at some of the other great theories of the existence of the pyramids that have happened over the years. For instance, Noah built the Great Pyramid. In 1859, a British publisher named John Taylor published his own book, The Great Pyramid: Why It Was Built and Who Built It. And the idea was that Noah built it.
What was it, so that he could have his vineyards on it? Well, we're getting crazy too.
The why in this article, and if you want to know, it's off from Aisle 9. This article doesn't explain why, but it explains how the man come by is very unique, because it was actually using a divine measurement system, and this, that, and that. What did you say? The Great Pyramids foretold the day of the apocalypse. So it hasn't happened yet. Satan built the Great Pyramid. And this this come in 1928. Joseph T. Rutherford, which you've probably heard of before. He was one of the early guys behind the Jehovah's Witnesses. Decided that it was built by Satan, and the language was Satan's Bible. The pyramids were actually originally hills, and they just kind of cleaned them up because they were used as quarries. Atlantis built the pyramids.
The fictional city of Atlantis.
Yes, that one.
The one that Plato knew was fictional when he was discussing it.
Because he was using it as an example.
Yes.
The pyramids aligned with the constellation of Orion, and they're actually absolutely flocked in one direction. So in honor of Ben Carson, there has been many people who do not understand the pyramids. They're really not that complicated. They're big stone pyramids, and they were built actually not that difficult to build. A lot of labor, but overall concept not that hard. Egypt does have granaries that are ancient.
But
They
Egypt wasn't
exist.
stupid enough to make gigantic, completely, showy, ridiculously oversized granaries.
And
Some
worthless.
of
And
them-
Primarily solid.
Yes.
Yes. That would be the biggest sticking point I have is if the building is solid on the inside.
Yeah.
While we're speculating, those must have been their quick
They're-
trips.
If you, yeah. I believe if you put all the usable area inside all the pyramids together, it's not going to store grain for 7 years. Not enough for a nation.
I doubt it.
Highly.
I
don't have the volumetric data. of
exactly.
pyramids, but
I
highly
did,
doubt it.
I did not go through and do the audit. to
When
see
I say
how it's
usable, I'm not saying that they sat there and filled the entirety of all the empty spaces and voids of the pyramids to the roof with grain. Is that stupid?
Well, and here's the thing: the pyramids aren't designed to be filled with anything.
Yeah.
Because to be filled with something, to be completely filled, you have to have an opening at the top.
Yeah.
And this is why grain elevators work the way they do in the modern era. You got a big cylinder, we have what's called an elevator that takes it up, drops it into the top, or they use blowing systems or a number of other systems. No. So yes, I nominate him for dumbest religious story of the week. Anybody else got any nominees?
Who can top that?
That's
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, that's kind of hard, isn't it?
That's
I
like
think it's
saying that,
consensus.
by the way, your religious figure was so
I mean-
stupid. He decided to undertake this huge building project for something that didn't require it. I mean,
Mhm.
basically,
plus,
he needed to knit sweaters in order to hold grain. So he had people knit a river of sweaters. So, I mean, that's just out there.
and there's the fact that not all pyramids are the same age.
No,
Yeah.
They would have to be to fit this hypothesis.
exactly.
They're just
They're
not.
not even the same. I mean, they're built differently. There's some that you can see have been sped up
Some
or
that have been eroded
stopped.
completely.
There's also been a couple of them. The process of building the pyramids is interesting because what you always see is the picture of the pyramids. Always the same picture. This perfect right feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, what people have forgotten are some of these other ones that happened.
It started to crack.
Exactly, because it was a trial and error process. Nobody had taken on the idea in that area. Nobody had taken on the idea of building structures this large. So literally, it's kind of a trial and error process for them back then.
Plus the older ones are, they're made of mud and straw brick on the inside and then with a nice veneer of granite to make it look like a solid pyramid.
Well, and almost all of the pyramids are missing 100% of their granite. They're smoothed out because these were a lot of people look at these as grand things, but they're nothing as grand as what they used to be.
And they used to be a veneer. They used to have the nice veneer of marble that was all polished on the outside. So I mean, in their heyday when they were pristine, it must have been just marvelous to behold.
Oh, absolutely.
And all the limestone has been taken away. We'll call them looters, but I prefer to think of them as repurposers. Here's something that's been sitting.
Recycling.
Here's something that's been sitting there for 1,000 years. We're just going to take a piece at a time as we need it.
I don't have nearly as much problem with the people taking stuff off the outside and repurposing
Right.
it as I do
It's-
because the people that were taking from the inside, they were looking for gold.
Yeah.
You know.
And why is there nothing in there?
And they ate
Why is there nothing in there?
corpses.
Because
They ate
they're
the
usually
zombies.
frickin'
Sorry, it's not
empty
zombies,
before any
mummies.
Western person ever discovered a way inside. Because they've been looted.
Yeah. So anyways, Ben Carson wins, but nobody gets the point because I know everybody walked in here with the same story.
And I'm sorry, I'm not disparaging the man and his faith. You can believe anything you want to believe. It's just when it flies in the fact of, quantifiable reality and you're running for the highest office in the land, you're going to catch some shit for stuff like this.
Yeah.
You just are. And I mean, you can't even claim that, oh, it's his religion. He's being persecuted for his beliefs. No, this is just stupid, hands down.
Yes, I tend to agree with you. And I share your point. Yes, he has faith, and I'm not going to begrudge him his faith. But come on, you're running for president.
And he has no proof. He has nothing to base it on except, hey, maybe this.
Pretty much.
I mean,
well, and he's
pure speculation.
And he hasn't even thought about it for like the biblical thing. I mean, you're not gonna pull out a bunch of pyramids in 7 years.
No.
Well, anything's possible through God.
Yes, but this was Joseph.
Except
This
for the
was
fact that we have
Joseph,
writings
who
written
was a
down on the inside of the
human.
pyramids and on the
Joseph
outside of the
wasn't
pyramids.
flying around in the time, you know. He was actually
Santa.
walking around. Exactly, he wasn't Pyramid Santa.
Pyramid Santa.
He made all the pyramids in a single evening.
No, he was a
That's a
human.
big honking sleigh you got there.
You.
Get over here and help me unload it.
I love that.
Now you're going to hear jingle bells every time you look at a picture of a pyramid. Season's greetings from Egypt.
Wow. So,
Are you hungry?
Hungry for it, dude.
Okay, shutting up.
progressive Christianity. So we're going to talk about progressive Christianity today.
Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe talk about Pyramid Santa. Okay, so progressive Christianity is a catch-all term. It catches more than one group and more than one idea. In fact, there's not a single idea. And as I was doing research for it, and Harvey was there for we were all sitting around having coffee, and Harvey was there for my what the hell moment, when somebody wrote, and sometimes it's always, actually, no, I'm not just going to say sometimes, it's often great to read the other side's opinion of the situation. So I'm looking at some articles on progressive Christianity as written from the conservative side. And let's see if I get this is one. Collective salvation was the term. Have you ever heard this term before?
No, I don't think so.
I have heard the term called, but apparently part of the theology of progressive Christianity. What are you trying to send me? Don't try and send me now. Thank you. Part of the ideas apparently of collective Christianity, according to this article, is collective salvation. I literally had to go look this up. This was something completely and utterly new to me. I am, as far as I know, a member of the progressive Christianity concept. But the overall belief of collective salvation is each person, of course, and the theories of the theology and dogmas of most Christian organizations is Harvey, for instance, is going to be saved or not saved all entirely on his own. That is his thing. If he spends the rest of his life as a good man, then he will be saved. Some people say that if he spends the rest of his life as a Christian, he will be saved. We are saying the idea of salvation through faith alone. Some people say if he goes out and does good things, he will be saved. The idea of salvation through actions. This was one I had to go look up, and I'm like, I don't even know that this is a part of progressive Christianity whatsoever, which is the idea that we're supposed to be out saving other cultures and other groups. Now, here's the thing. When I say saving, I don't mean bringing them to Jesus, just making their life better. Well, okay.
But the loving your neighbor as yourself is supposed to make things better, right? I mean, it's not like we love our neighbor as ourselves. That horrible person. Oh, wait, I have a problem that I need to go to therapy for because apparently I hate myself. Sorry.
Well then,
I mean,
that's
I mean, that's one of those things where it's like sometimes you have to wonder how people are interpreting that if their treatment of other humans is what it is.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, that's one of First Geeks. Pretty much anybody who's ever attended here looks and says the same thing. Love my neighbor as myself. That means I gotta go help those people. I don't care if he's gay. I don't care if he's Muslim. I don't care if anything. Doesn't matter. That's my neighbor. That's pretty much the one agreeable thing that we all have. And it's also the same thing that we look at other groups and go, because we don't see that in other groups. But the idea of collective salvation.
Well, the thing is, in order to save someone else, you have to think you've got a handle on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, basically, if you see your fellow human trying to eat paste and you think that might be wrong, now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to eat paste.
You're not a pastist.
I'm not tastist. Yes, but if you think that maybe that would be bad for them or something, and you're trying to stop them from eating paste, you know, that's because you think something else works better. You're not just going over to them and saying, you can't eat that because I said so. It's usually framed in a, you know, there's pizza over here.
Well, because I said so, though. You can't do that because I said so. Actually, it's pretty common anyways. I mean, and I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean just period.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that we do.
Okay, I got to where she's on paste. Not a patient. So there is a delay. So what happened to the patient?
For anybody who happens to
Pastries.
wonder what the hell's going on now, we're live. We live broadcast. I just lost words. Entire parts of my brain fell out. These are live events on YouTube, and then they're archived later. And one person was late, and so he listened to it on the way over. And apparently there's about 30 seconds delay. And what she was pointing out was the idea that, well, Miss Pastist there,
Non-pastist.
non-pastist, was saying that basically to suggest to others there's a better thing to eat than paste. That's probably not a good idea for you. Rather than saying, no, don't eat paste. Why? Because I said so. To which my retort was, we get a lot of that, not just in religion, but in life in general. There's a lot of, don't do this. Why? Because I said so. And it's actually how we're brought up a lot of times. Let's face it, how many times have we heard our parents say, because I said so? And, well, they're parents. It's valid then. I do believe that, you know. So
No.
is it? I believe there should be an explanation, but
My Ben Carson t-shirt.
there's a T-shirt that's a parody of the X-Files, but Jesus-based. So
we're talking about flow. What? Flow. Progressive.
And build your own religion plan.
Well, you know, I guess I kind of did that. Just congregation. Saved a lot of money.
But you still
I wish that were true, actually.
you have a guy doing infiltrator stuff.
Actually, you know, I'm not endorsing him unless they pay me. But actually do have. I actually do use progressive insurance. Anyways, so back to progressive. I have lost. I'm gone. I'm done. I really pretty much.
See, in
Pretty much I've forgotten everything I was thinking about. So what were we discussing? We discussed Ben
Saving other
Carson.
people.
Say what?
Saving other
Okay.
cultures.
So,
People-
so the idea of collective salvation.
Yeah.
Actually, I
The
like it.
Borg?
So what?
The board?
No. That would, I'm gonna load it. There's so many jokes, and I'm just gonna leave them all alone. So, Catholics. are
Okay, but
boys.
if you
Anyways,
feel, if you feel like you want to tell a joke, it's okay.
So anyways, this is one of the attributes given to progressive Christianity, and it was something I hadn't even heard of before. And I'm like, how mainstream is this concept? Well, guess what? It's not. It's not really. And as was pointed out, love thy neighbor as thyself is a major tenet. And in such, it doesn't matter if it's one person or 50,000 people or 100,000 people, we still apply it. We are doing what we think is good and right. Somebody decided to create a term, almost create a term. It's not a brand new term, by the way. Apparently, this was actually something applied to Catholicism at one time. The idea if you were a Catholic, you were automatically saved. Jews actually had the idea way back with the idea that the Mashiach, the messenger of God, was going to return or going to come and liberate the Jews. And they had both they had collective salvation, the idea that you're saved because you're one of these people, and individual judgment. So actually, here's the thing, this person used this term, and as I'm working the logic out on this term, I'm going, so really what you're describing is just Christianity in general. Anyways, the idea that you're Baptist, so you're saved because you have faith, and the idea that you're going to have to deal with the judgment of your actions. So wait, what this guy is really saying is that we're like everybody else anyways. And he down to. Okay, but he just had to find a term that he could use in such a way to separate these people from those people. And there's no single definition for progressive Christianity. For instance, does anybody know what a red letter Christian is?
I've heard that
Trying to
goes
compel
from
us.
red letters in the Bible where Jesus talks.
Yes. Basically, anything that's a quote of Jesus is presented in red. Or blue. There's a couple of variations of blue. Don't ask me why. Blue letter Bible is
It's all
actually.
mystery to me. I'm like, I've heard of it, but I've never seen that. I've not seen a Bible like that as far as I know of.
And actually, I've owned a couple of them that were the red letter Bibles. They're handy.
Most
They actually
King
come.
James,
So what?
most King James.
Which
Yeah.
was not an original feature.
Right.
That's a modernized feature, especially because printed
Red
color
ink.
would have been holy
Yeah.
smokes. But the idea with like red letter Christians is that they live directly by the words of Jesus. Forget Old Testament, forget the writings of Paul, etc., etc. Those are nice guidelines. These are the words we live by. Oddly enough, by living directly by those words, and only those words, you end up with a different result in Christianity, which we all know this already. A greater emphasis on not worrying about material wealth, more emphasis on worrying about dealing with social issues. So you end up with a totally, but these are considered to be another form of progressive Christian. Not a particularly new group either.
No,
But
yeah, the book was written by Tony Campolo.
gotcha. Did not know that. Thank you.
I gotta go over to
At some point.
He's pretty good.
Um,
On a few of his books.
And of course, this also includes the idea, and this is a great term, the evangelical left is also part of the definitions for progressive Christians. We talk about the evangelicals, and we always lump them together with one group. We call them the Christian right. Right. And
Our right, stage right, left, right.
I'm ambidextrous. You can't tell me left or right. You got a 50-50 chance that I'll get it. Say west, south, east, north, I'm much better. Anyways, Jimmy Carter is a great example of a progressive Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly an evangelical leftist.
Well, he didn't save our children,
No.
so he's a bad president.
Well, I'm sorry. Which person has saved your children? You don't have any kids anyway. Shut up.
No, I'm just, because most evangelicals believe that he was a bad president because he didn't save our children.
You mean you're referring to abortion issues?
And homosexual issues and,
Because homosexuality has killed so many people.
yes,
Roving packs of homosexuals out there beating people with glitter.
They're breeding like bunnies.
Say what?
Breeding like bunnies.
I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to walk away from it. And this is all coming about at a time where there's becoming more and more mudslinging between different denominations and different sides of these issues. The idea of a evangelical Christian
or
that's a
even
leftist.
consider a leftist a Christian.
So what?
The religious right doesn't believe that. The religious left is a Christian at all.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
progressive is a Christian at all.
But hang on a second before we point at them as casting stones, because you do have extreme lefters who are casting stones, saying those guys are the ones that aren't really Christians. We're the real Christians. And I have said many times how much of a beef I have with rah, 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 our side is right. Because there's no right answer. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever is going to do it perfectly. Nobody's ever going to be perfectly right. I do think there are some people who get it more right than others. I like this current Pope a lot more than I like the previous one. Why? Because I think he gets it right. In fact, actually, he'd be almost in the progressive Christian realm. Let's just say almost, because not a whole lot of support for homosexuality. Not a whole lot of support for women. He likes women. He thinks they belong in the church. He just doesn't think they should be leaders. This would be where I start having a problem with it. This is all coming at a time, you get this mudslinging going on, each side telling each other how they're wrong, and saying how their numbers, and this is a great article I read, was talking about how the numbers for over here on the left, how they're losing, Episcopalians are losing droves and droves of people because they've accepted homosexuals. You can be homosexual and a leader of a congregation. You can be a woman and a leader of a congregation. You can get married in there.
Madness.
Dogs and cats living together in peace. And so you've got the right saying that, and you got the left saying, well, you fuddy-duddies, you're losing people left and right. Let's rewind to a previous First Geek group because I want to give both sides a reminder here. I think I hit the wrong one. Uh-oh. We'll see here in a second. Here we go. I've drawn this. I don't know. This is probably the third time I've drawn this.
I think second time I've seen it live in person instead of Memorex.
There's a term that will be forgotten in another generation. Nobody will know what it means. Memorex.
Do you know what Memorex means?
No. I'm sitting here going, what does that mean?
What? Is it live or is it Memorex?
You
I
never
have
heard that
no
commercial?
idea what you guys are talking about.
I guess it's a 5-year gap or
How old
something.
are you?
I'm actually 37? 37?
I like the fact that you have to ask.
I'm 42.
I've been that guy before. So.
I'm 42, so there's a 5-year gap of knowing that joke and not knowing that joke.
Wow.
That was a joke.
Yes.
Vaguely. It's not a good one, but
That's really got to do with your self-esteem. That was a joke.
I was trying to
Trying
figure
to be
stuff
funny.
out. Oh my God. So it's a tape?
yes. Okay, the whole premise. Sorry. She jumped a little bit when I said yes. Yes, it was the whole commercial was based around the idea of the quality of the tapes were so good that you wouldn't be able to tell whether it was a live event or recorded.
Okay, so basically it's not delivery, it's recordo, but it's,
Right.
yeah, tape version. Okay.
And I don't know when the last time I've used is it live or is it Memorex, but I will admit there's a couple of commercials I still use. It's Prego. It's in there. Not many people get the reference.
Right. No, Chef Marshall. It's in there.
The delivery, you bastards. All right, let's try spelling Catholic correct.
C-A-T-H. They're cats with H's. There's a cat-aholic.
They're cataholics, yeah.
I'm just with the group that claim that there's actually other religions out there, and we don't have to force them to believe our way.
Where were you?
Where were you?
I was
Passing
asleep,
out, right?
remember? And then I woke up, and then I turned it on. It wasn't live yet, so I kept on refreshing it to try to make it start, and then it finally did.
Yeah, because we were about 20 minutes or 10 minutes late. So, anyways, so you've got both sides saying how the other side is losing support because one side saying they're losing support, but these guys are losing support because they support homosexuals and new agendas and things like this. And this side saying, no, they're losing support because they're old fuddy-duddies who don't believe the same things as us. When in reality, all of them are losing support. Groups like us probably would actually show up as unaffiliated because they're not one of the major groups. We're not necessarily Protestant, Catholic, et cetera. We don't really fall in their category. So you've got an increase in the number of people who are unaffiliated or other religions and a downward trend over the last over the last 7 years. Not just a small downward trend either, a very large downward trend. Now, I read an article real recently that appeared
Covington?
No. Actually, this is a local. It was a local article about some local churches. And they were talking about their attendance numbers being out and things like that. And I thought, I am suspicious. Because I've heard people say, well, you know, Kansas is one of those places that we're religious and we're not going to quit being religious. Really? So let's see if we can back that claim up. Now, people changing Wilson, Kansas. People changing what groups they hang with. That's pretty common. I mean, people move from time to time. But to fall out completely, that's a different story. So, Pew Research. Pew. Anyways, so I thought I would pull up Pew's research on it for Kansas very specifically, because I'm like, all right, so what do we got here going on here in Kansas? I'll be honest, I was a little surprised to find out how wrong some of these people are. Because attendance of religious services among adults in Kansas. I'm going to draw that. Now I'm going to erase it.
Just to say you've done it 3 times.
Done it 3 times. Yep. Don't need to draw that anytime soon again.
Hey, right line is slightly this one. It's a distinct graph.
This is a graph.
I don't know.
This is stack bar.
Let's break out.
Well, at least it's not pictures.
This road's getting to heaven, and that one's not quite making it to heaven.
We don't have any numbers on heaven yet. Jesus hasn't, permanently
Jobs
laid down
report.
the jobs report. Oh my gosh, Marshall. No.
Actually, what is that? 2 here.
Oh yeah, don't forget 2001 when everyone was a Christian.
That's what Y2K did.
Yes.
Evil computer bug.
The computer bug is going to bring around the end of
It
the world.
changed all our religions and scrambled everybody's languages so we could communicate. C++.
Perl and PHP, living peace. Yeah.
I think that's why I dropped out of church again in 2001. Was because everyone was saying we have to attack the Muslims.
Yeah, the minute that you have a church that's saying we need to attack somebody,
Yeah.
time
Bye.
to go.
Zoom.
And that's what most of the denominations were saying in 2001 after 9/11. And it's like, no, that's not the Christian thing to do. That's the Jewish thing to do. An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth.
So,
I didn't like it when it happened to us. That makes us think that it's a good thing to do.
They got good, so do the Jews.
Yeah.
okay. These 2 stats, these are out of Kansas. And if you ever want to know more, you can look at pewresearch.com or pewforum.org. And they've got a whole lot of data on this sort of thing. But attendance in churches. And I'm going to use this as our first of two gauges. Once a week, 48% of people in 2007, 48% of people in Kansas went to church once a week. 30% went once or twice a month or a few times a year. 21% basically seldom or never. And then the rest of them don't go. 2004 or 2014, we dropped to 37% our weekly attendance. That's a huge drop. And this is just a little bit of drop. That's a huge drop. 35% sometimes attend maybe once a month, a couple times a year. 28% have gone down to the point of seldom or never. Well, this up here unto itself is not as impressive as without throwing some context in it. Because just because people are not attending, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't believe it. Or they may have chosen to do home study or what have you, their own prayer setups, things like that. Actually, here in Kansas, 2007, 77% of people believe in God. Let's find my stat. There we go. And they were absolutely certain that a God existed. That God existed. Christian God. We're down to 66%. 14% believed and were fairly certain. There's room for error. That's increased to 21% or 22%. Did not believe in God was actually a whopping 4%. Now it's up to 7%. So it's not just these guys throwing stones back and forth at each other and saying how they're doing it wrong. No. The numbers support, even here in Kansas, there's a shift going on away from the church, period. We're talking, I mean, this is, that attendance thing, that's huge, huge change. So for either side to say the other one is destroying Christianity, or to say that, well, they're dying off because they're doing this, it's wrong. Both sides are. Both sides are seeing a loss in traction, a loss in people, and a loss in belief. And that's in Kansas. Imagine what the rest of the nation looks like. There are a couple of states where you do see an increase. Not many. So anytime that you hear somebody say, well, Episcopalians are losing ground because
They're a big church because they accept homosexuality,
right,
type thing.
You can just smile and nod and go ahead and walk away from the conversation because you never know the stats. You just pull it, so okay. But you never know the stats that actually both sides are full. There's just no way around it. Both sides are full. So it's kind of a depressing stat, though. I mean, and I don't mean this necessarily from a religious standpoint. I mean this from a societal standpoint. Church does have an advantage because it's the one time we get together. For a lot of people, it's the one time we get together in a large setting. We believe in something greater than ourselves, than our own money and everything else. We believe in something beyond ourselves. And we contribute, hopefully contribute, to a community. And to see that many people falling off, that worries me. I'm hoping those people find something else to fulfill themselves. I'm hoping that they're spending that same Sunday going out and helping social groups, helping groups like the Center, or helping the homeless or something, finding something else, some other way to contribute to society. That's what I really hope. Unfortunately, I don't believe any of that to be true, and that's false hope on my part. But there's also, by the way, on that whole same page, if you go to Pew, there's actually a whole bunch of other interesting stuff in there about it. Part of the other tenets, for lack of a better term, for the idea of progressive Christianity is the idea that we need to help the poor and the needy, help our fellow man. That's the only thing that from on the surface thing, all churches kind of sort of believe that. All Christian churches sort of believe that. I do use the word sort of because we do see groups that are anti-food stamp, anti-unemployment, anti-this, anti-that, anti-welfare to help those in need. Those are still, and I maintain this, those are still the loudest groups, the ones we hear that from, not necessarily the largest majority. But the loudest people are the ones that always lead others. So if you stand
Or become the stereotype.
or become a stereotype, it's unfortunate. But if you are in a church and you are espousing the values of hard work and how these people are lazy and just taking your money, there's going to be people who agree with you even if they don't agree with you. That's the way it works, especially in churches, unfortunately. There's a downside to churches. But in theory, that is one of the basic tenets that both sides should kind of agree on, at least to a certain extent. Homosexuality, the quote homosexual agenda, does not fall within the same thing. And that seems to be right now, if you want to pick the thing to define progressive Christianity, there's the issue. The idea that homosexuals are not horrible people. And I don't mean that homosexuals can marry. I don't mean that homosexuals have rights, that they're not horrible people. There are a lot of people who make a lot of noise about the idea that homosexuals are trying to recruit more homosexuals. Mm-hmm. As far back as the Kinsley study, we've known that the number of people who are actually homosexual versus out of the closet were two different numbers to start with. Nobody had to recruit homosexuals. They were already there. And sometimes they were leaders in these churches speaking out heavily against it. And then we find out, 4 or 5 years later, these same people were they were homosexual all the time. But that is the forefront fight item.
I'm almost to the point of when someone's against homosexuality in the church, it's like, and as in my circle, I'm almost to the point of just saying, do not slander and walk away.
And that's
because it just drives me insane.
I can understand that. I really can. I mean, everybody has their hot topic issue. Really. And I had one day that I unfriended somebody on Facebook, and it's kind of hard to get unfriended by me, okay? Because I may just ignore you. I've got 2,400, 2,500 people on my friends list on Facebook. I do not look at all of their posts. Instead, there's about 150 people that are actually people who make it through my filters that I actually see. So it's hard to actually get unfriended off my Facebook feed. But every once in a while, somebody manages to do it. And for instance, speaking of homosexual agenda, when the Supreme Court brought down their ruling, I had one person say, "Oh, thank God, because we had better things to deal with." Unfriend. Because no, you're talking about potentially as large as 10% of the nation saying that they don't have the same right to do the same things you do. Man, that doesn't sound like it was a small issue to me. Not at all. But everybody.
Being selfish.
Well, yeah. Well, everybody enjoys certain rights as long as they have the rights.
Yeah.
They don't care if the other person has the rights.
Yeah.
And we have that hierarchy of need. Some of that is based on that, but some of that is based on our desire to be better than everybody else. Some people feel that need. They need to be better than everybody else. They need to enjoy certain rights that nobody else gets. But the thing is, it's not new in Christianity, the idea of homosexual marriage. It's not actually a new concept. In fact, it's not a new concept, period.
Yeah, that I know.
So what?
That I know.
Yeah, it's
There's other cultures with different words for different gender, and
Oh yeah, but even going beyond the idea of because there's a difference in a way, because we've all seen Brent's presentation on it. But in a way, there's yet another issue there, which is because Brent breaks it down into the idea that gender is fluid.
We were talking about the there's other cultures with different genders. He's elaborating.
I believe you were here.
I was just going
Oh,
there,
okay.
and it doesn't echo as well in there.
Gotcha.
It kind of mutes it, and
The idea that the male is not a male is not a male is not a male, or a female. Not all people have an equal gender concept. That's what he goes by. But this part of history is a little different. The fact that they didn't have such differentiations. And see if I can find the term for it. It's kind of an interesting term. The Christianity actually, now when I say Christianity, I do not mean the whole of Christianity. Far from it. But Christianity actually supported such an idea at one time in certain sects. See if I can find the term.
because we all have terms.
Brother making.
Brother,
Brother making. Two males that basically end up, for lack of a better term, married. This is more of a civil union than marriage as we think of it. But there's been a number of them over the years. Now, here's the thing about it. It's a highly contested set of opinions, too, because nobody knows for certain how right or wrong the writings on it were. But there's a record of, there it is, Spain. April 16th, 1061. They had a gay marriage. So it's not new. You know, the church likes to treat this as if it's a new problem. I should say that the evangelical right likes to treat this as if it's a new thing, and it's always been a sin, and now somebody's saying it's not a sin. No, there's been people who've been trying to say that for quite a while. And that's actually kind of the thing about the progressive idea here, is that most of these concepts aren't new ideas by any means. The idea that we should be focusing more heavily on feeding others and less heavily on our own pocketbook. This is nothing new, not by any means. The idea that welfare is more important than riches, not new. None of it. The Catholics had that at one time. They were big on it at one time. Of course, they had their own problems during the same time period with riches, which was, popes dealing with a lot of money that they shouldn't necessarily be dealing with. But none of these concepts were new. And we call it progressive as if it's changing something. It's moving forward, something forward. And these are concepts hundreds and thousands of years old. And we're just now getting back around to making these an issue? Wow. That is almost as progressive as the wrong term for it. But it's what we got. What? So the evangelical left.
snailness.
What? Snailness? As in slow to accept and slow to change? Everybody picks on the Catholic Church about being slow to change, but actually it's the entire thing. All of Christianity is slow to change. It's a thing. Because we've got people that tell us traditionally this is what we do, therefore this is what we do. This is how we've always done it, therefore we always do it that way. Even if it's not true, that that's how we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we say.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that a lot of the articles also attribute the idea of perversion of scripture. for progressive Christianity? There's no right or wrong answer to that question, because I could make the same debate about the right, about conservative Christianity. Well, they perverted Scripture to serve their purposes, to serve, to serve the idea that they should be more focused on the law of God. Yeah.
Well, weren't there more than one set of Bibles with some different words in them over the years? I mean,
Well,
not like we had like mass-produced Bibles way back in the day.
there are. Yes, there are.
There's some contestation
There's a,
what the words actually are.
when you get into New Testament, you have a lot of it, because you got to remember you had a letter, and this is a mistake that we make. See, the old Hebrew stuff, when they transcribed it over, there were rules. There were serious rules about this. You make a mistake, you didn't just scratch it out and fix it. No, that sheet of deer skin, that's toast. You have to start again. There was formalized procedures for it, and a belief that if you made any mistakes with it, you're going to burn. But when Christianity started becoming prevalent, you have these letters that are going around. That's just it. They're letters. They're not a codified system at the very beginning. Even when you get a little codified, you're still not quite all there yet. And you're starting to run into the multilingual problem. See, the Hebrews had it easy.
You know,
One language.
Yeah.
And then when the language started to drift, they drifted with it. But they kept a secondary language. So they all knew, because you got to remember, to them, that was the all important thing. To be able to know Torah was of such great importance. In fact,
It's almost like it was, instructions by their God or something.
weird. Weird. To the point that they put greater importance on it than Christianity does on knowing the New Testament. Because really, most people you talk to that are religious, they can throw a couple of verses at you, and if you actually start having a conversation with them, you get a lot of, really? Where? Right here. And it happens. It happens. And there's a lot of jokes that atheists know the Bible better than a lot of Christians. Fortunately, sometimes it's true.
My favorite one right now that I'm dealing with, trying to reconcile within myself, is Acts 15, where the church is saying we think that it's good for us and the Holy Spirit to not follow the law. Acts 15 talks about that, about how people worm their way in to talk about the law of God. And the church is getting ready to send out a letter, and NIV says abstain from sexual immorality. But the Message, the New Bible, says and guard the morality of sex and marriage.
Two different things.
Yeah.
These are very, very different concepts.
Abstain means that it exists out there.
Yeah.
To guard and it's like, guys, you're turning the word of God into a sword against society.
I've talked many times about the Bible being used as a cudgel to beat people about the head and neck. No, you got to do it this way because the Bible says this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, it is easy to cherry pick and support your argument for just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, going back to Liz's point about there being multiple sources. Yeah, there was for a while. I mean, we've kind of got it isolated down. To a certain degree, we've got it isolated down. But that does not mean that the errors that have occurred over the years don't still persist. And we still have a King James Bible. that there are many people who swear upon it, literally.
Not let their yes be yes and their no be no.
And in this process, we bring up one of the other points of progressive Christianity is attributed to progressive. I should say, as attributed to progressive Christianity, the idea of less literalism about the Bible, that we don't view it as an unerring document. I'll admit I don't. I don't view it as an error-free document because I started learning to read Hebrew at one point, and I realized how far in between that is. And remember, hey, remember that I mentioned I wanted to give a degree in archaeology and anthropology. Part of that's language study, the idea of language drift and all these things. And I can tell you, no, we don't even know what some of those words mean for certain out of the Hebrew. Out of Koine Greek, we got a little better idea. But you know what nobody speaks? Koine Greek. That particular form that it was written in. Nobody speaks it. And the idioms and all these things. We know, it basically boils down to, and I'm going to say this and it's going to come off more hurtful than it's supposed to. We're smart enough to understand and savvy enough to understand that what we read today is not what was written down, not necessarily what was intended long ago. So we understand. So most of us pick a path, and we pick it in such a way that we feel that we are upholding the moral concepts. For me, it's peace, love, and respect. That's the thing I take away from reading the New Testament and looking at the words of Jesus. Somebody else may bring something else to the table from that. But that's what I've got. And because I know I can't completely trust that somebody down the road didn't make a mistake. And I can't completely trust that Paul's letters were divinely intended to be part of the Bible. Because they were just that. They were angry letters, an old man angry about things. Because let's face it, he's been to prison, he's had a pretty hard life. I can't say that those were divinely supposed to be there. I don't see any preface on it that said, so these were written down because God told me to write them down. An angry letter to the Corinthians and tell them to buck up. So we understand these things. And I don't mean that as an insult to others. Because the way that comes across is, elitist, you're smarter than they are. No, that's not the point. In fact, it has nothing to do with IQ. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with thinking differently. So, and we see perfectly intelligent people. We see a brain surgeon who thinks the pyramids were built to fill with grain. He's obviously not a dumb guy. He was a freaking brain surgeon at one point. He's retired now. That's not to say he might not have had a stroke somewhere along the way. Who knows? But they're perfectly intelligent people we run across who believe these things. Who believe that the word is an unerring thing. I can't buy with them. So I can understand why progressivism, at least in that point, why some people would look at progressivism as a horrible and evil thing. Because, wow, they don't. This is the document I live, theoretically, this is the document I live everything about my life about, and they say it's got errors. I can see why they'd be angry about it. I can see why they would think that we're wrong. And I can understand it. But I think that they're wrong. So, just a second, swap back.
So here's the funny thing, how I base it on is 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. All scripture is God-breathed and useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. not for society.
Well, yeah, and that's an interesting point because I mean, it's one of the confusing parts about it is that when you start with Old Testament, this was not about individual choice. This was about society. This was a codified set of rules that no, not you are going to live by it. Y'all are going to live by it. Period. And if you don't, there's going to be repercussions. And every 40 years, they ended up with more repercussions because they'd stray away from it. Horrible things happen. Some of them survive, and they go back to Torah. But when you get into New Testament, it is much more individualistic sort of outlook. And so some people will take that same statement and apply it. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean about, it's for the servant, but their meaning is a pluralized idea. See, there'll be people who take it that way, that it should be all of society, because if I believe this, then all of society should believe it. And again, those are also the same people who would look at me and go, you're wrong in your translation of this, because you don't believe what I believe.
Well, there's a comment at the end of 16, and that's where they stop.
Well, yes. That's the end of a statement. That's all of 16? Why would it go on?
Well, it didn't separate into chapters
why do we need
1200.
Why do we need context?
It didn't separate the verses until 1500. It's a new thing about separating the verses.
Yes, some people almost, but not quite believe. Because when you point it out to them, they go, I guess that makes sense. Some people almost believe the Bible was written with chapters and verses. Remember, from the very beginning. And until you point it out to them, they have, and you can see it, the gears working in their heads. And a little bit of smoke trickles out the ears. Because you just broke them. Because their entire life, they have looked at this book. And it has always been the same format. Almost universal. Let's just say almost. There's some Old Testament parts that if you try and give coordinates, it depends on which Bible you're reading. Which is really confusing when you have a Torah study and from Bibles. And when you give the coordinates, somebody goes, but mine says, no, you're in the wrong chapter. But some people almost believe it was written that way, written with the divisions in it and all these things, and you point out, no, that was a letter from Paul. Well, yeah, but doesn't change anything for him, but it does
it kind of helps with, okay, maybe I should be reading this in one sitting. And I talked to my sister and almost got her, but now she's been with mom and it doesn't work.
It's a thing.
It's like,
Then the other portion of it is attributed again to progressive Christianity. And see, I say these attributed to because it's so easy for somebody else to write something and say, well, the problem with progressive Christians is they kill puppies. I don't know about you, but I'm not killing puppies.
you're not.
Yeah.
I have not killed puppies. Not my thing. But one of the other things attributed is that an absolute lack of divinity behind the Bible. The idea that these are just stories, none of it is true.
Well, the first and last book of the Bible is a dream.
You know, let's not get into my problems with Revelations. Because Revelations.
Right.
There's
I'm
Revelations.
just saying that the first and the last is dream.
Yeah, the literalism of storytelling in Genesis, in the beginning of the Bible, for Genesis, you have this buildup that occurs when nobody existed, apparently. So nobody wrote it down at the time. Obviously, there's no live blogging of this event. The universe was created, and there was nobody there to tweet it. And so you end up with, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a literary device. How did we get to this point? Well, let me tell you how. First, God said, let there be light. There was, and it was good. And et cetera, et cetera. It is a literary device. It was not a scientific manual. And we've talked about that before. I mean, we can rerun this topic real quick, but we've talked about this before, and the fact that there are people who take that as being an absolute fact. This is how it was done. Therefore, the universe is only, insert age, some people 6,000, some people 10,000, etc. years old. And then when you say that story is an allegory for creation, what you've told them is you do not believe in their Bible, which don't really believe these stories, because, you know, if you don't believe one part, you don't believe any of it, despite the fact that way back, Job was a tale that the Jews weren't really too keen on thinking as being a true story. It was supposed to be a literary device about faith, especially because there's a conversation going on essentially between Hasatan and God. And
Can you imagine that story before it was written down? Memorizing that entire story?
No. No. But, you know, I mean, here's the thing about it.
40-some chapters?
Well, it's something we forget because we have lost the talent for storytelling. It was, and I'm not saying they went to school for storytelling, but the ability to repeat a story verbatim was common because this was a requirement. So, you know, so the guy comes into town, he sits down and he tells the tale of Job. And he will have told that story 500 times in the last 2 years as he sits around a fire and somebody hands him bread to encourage him to continue to tell a tale. This is, you know, we think of that as an arduous thing to memorize it. Because, I mean, I'm sure everybody in school at least once had to memorize a chapter of something, or at least a couple of pages out of it and recite it.
It's not like anybody's memorized baseball cards or anything else, just for fun, like the Indian rules or anything.
Oh, we didn't memorize that for episodes of Doctor Who, or
or G.I. Joe,
Nobody
or
can repeat that
Transformers.
scene with Luke and his father and
cheat
I am
codes
your
for
father.
ID.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of it. When C-3PO tells the story of the great to the Ewoks.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't know why what flashed through my head is from the current trailer and saying, yeah, the stories are all true. I don't know. But so anyways, there's the belief from the outside looking in that all these tales are nothing more, that progressive Christians believe all these tales are nothing more than morality tales. But I pose the following. Is that a bad thing? Even if they did? I mean, if they believe these are morality tales, and the underlying moral structure is love each other and do good things, aren't we all better off then? And doesn't that also mean, because then the next debate would be, yeah, but that means they're not saved. Well, the next debate would be salvation through action or salvation through faith.
And
Or salvation because Jesus loves you.
Yes.
And it's kind of like salvation through works, to me, is different than salvation by works for them.
Well, there
Because
is
my idea is actions. You're helping others. You're helping the poor. You're not telling them to go to a shelter. You're actually helping them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not depending upon my belief that my church or my shelter will help them.
Yeah.
That's what today we've lost.
Well, yeah,
Because we always tell them, go to the shelter, they'll help you.
we abstract away the problem. We've removed direct action more often than not and replaced it with food pantries. And things like that. There's advantages to the idea of doing stuff like food pantries and homeless shelters and things like that. But on the other hand, by removing direct action, I feel by removing direct action, we've removed works. Yeah, we've removed works from the equation. Yeah. Literally, if you want to be safe at this point, you might as well stick with by faith alone at that.
Yeah.
With that idea.
Because, I mean, it's just like in John, I think it is, where he says, if you just wish them a good day and not do anything for them, then you're
Go through the love of God being
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, we put so much faith in that we've lost our works.
Now, oddly enough, there's this interesting side effect, by the way, of that belief that progressive Christians may just believe in the Bible as a moral tale. It means they can also say, and part of them probably don't even believe in God, because it's just a moral tale. And you can live by a moral structure without necessarily following God or Jesus or any of these things. I know completely moral people who are atheists. I wouldn't call them Christians. Mm-hmm. They'd kind of probably find it a little insulting, as a matter of fact. So why would that leap happen? Because it's a way to attack others, and that's the sort of thing they're trying to set up in these articles, is to attack these people. But never forget, while you've got the right attacking the left, I'm also reading plenty of articles on the left attacking the right. Mm-hmm. The problem is, and I'm going to sum this up very simply, is both sides are assholes. The left wants to attack the right because the right does not do the same thing. Okay. Foul on the play.
I don't know the hand signals for that.
I don't really have. I'd have to have. That is not the proper hand signal, sir. NFL would kick you out for that.
You don't have a flag, no country.
I have no flag, therefore I have no country. Thank you very much. Actually, funny story. One of the apps I wrote is called Fallacy Graph, which is all of the logical fallacies for conversations. It's actually loaded on my phone, and I could have just held that up. But anyway, so what we're doing, and the problem is both sides are encouraging it. They're encouraging it. They literally, if you go on some of the Christian left sites and some of their Christian right sites, particularly their fucking Facebook sites, they literally have started encouraging the idea of attacking the other side. It's no longer just a pass that this one guy doesn't like those people because they believe this. No, it's, hey, I don't believe that they're right. You need to be with me on this. On top of that, you know what? Anybody who believes that, just unfriend them right now. Just get rid of them. We're losing.
People get polarized.
People get polarized. And when people get polarized, we lose the ability to have a dialogue. Mm-hmm. See, we're talking about Christian left and Christian right. Man, we really at some point need to get to the point that we're talking about Christian. We need to get to the point that we can have a dialogue on this. But we're so far from that point right now. We're so far from that point that we can't look at each other across the aisle and say, well, you know, I see where you're coming from. I disagree, and here's why. And have a civil conversation about it on a large scale. Notice I say a large scale. I have friends who are conservatives, and even ultra conservatives, that I can have a conversation with. Not a problem. We were not going to change our opinion, probably. Let's just say probably. But we can have a conversation about it and understand each other. And this is what we're lacking right now. And this whole thing, what?
No, I was just going to let you finish your statement.
And this is where where I'm starting to dislike further and further, you know, as everybody knows, I don't really care for the label Christian anymore even. But the idea of progressive or leftist Christians, I'm disliking it even more because it's slung as an insult. You know, liberal church, I can remember this being used as an actual term as insult where I was before. No, it's not. In fact, actually, here's the thing. With declining numbers on both sides, they both need to wake up and realize something. Somebody is getting it wrong on both sides. There's a reason why we're no longer believing as often as we did. There's a reason why we're leaving churches. There's a reason why all these things are happening. We need to kind of figure out why. And all the insults and all of the time and energy spent writing articles to attack the other side, maybe we should be spending a little bit more time refining ourselves. And when I mean ourselves, I mean, okay, if you're part of the Christian left, okay, where are our core? Because I listed off all these values. They're not a universal thing. I mean, there's even more fine-grained stuff I could have got into that some people have attributed to progressive Christianity, and some people have attributed to the conservative Christianity. What more time and effort should be done is focusing on our own, you know, focusing on our own belief sets. Okay, what is it I actually believe? All right, what is it as we as a group believe? What is it as we as a religion believe? And because the funny thing is when you start going down that list, there's more when you start from an individual standpoint, there's more points of commonality than there is at the religious level, at the full organizational level. Because the number of people I've known who are, and I'm not kidding, members of conservative churches who were all right with the idea of a homosexual pastor might surprise you, but they're still part of a conservative group that wouldn't do that. There are people who are liberal, liberal Christians who still have a problem with a homosexual preacher. That's the issue for them. So the points of commonality, if we would refine those first, figure out ourselves, and then try and talk to our neighbor and figure out our neighbor a little bit, maybe we can finally get to some point where we're not being assholes to each other. I doubt it. It'd be great if it happened, but it implies a level of introspect about ourselves that we don't appear to have on a religious level. One would think that a religion that encourages certain behaviors, that we would have introspection. We're told to meditate on the word and all these things, but we don't really. We don't care that much. We don't even read the book most of the time. We depend on what others tell us. And it's easy for the Christian left and the Christian right to attribute each other to losing people because of their behaviors. But I have a third theory on this one. Facebook and the internet is why we're losing people. Because, you know, when something sort of encourages you to think for yourself, and you get more than just that one guy up there telling you this is how what the book says and how you're supposed to live. Well, it's easy to have crisis of faith when you start looking around. You start reading what other people wrote about it and realize it doesn't match a single thing that you were brought up with. You can see people leaving the church over that very easily. They're losing their faith.
Well, also there was a time when like atheists didn't know other atheists.
Yeah, you have a good point. I hadn't even thought of that, but you're right. Because if you weren't part of a church but you were atheist, because that happened, it wasn't okay to not go to a church for a lot of families. But if you find other people who believe the same thing, yeah, that would encourage you. That would encourage you to follow that path. And
Or be honest about what you're feeling and what you're thinking about and things like that. I mean, just if before you might just think you were just doubting it or blah blah blah, or you might be like, well, this is all there is, you know. But if you see you have choices and you you're not just, you know, sitting here going, man, it sounds like bullshit to me, but everybody does it. You know,
I think it's very valid, very valid. Yeah.
but so I've read a few things about different people who were atheists that came out of different churches or didn't, and you know, basically why. And I mean, there's still atheists that are in churches that are, you know, like all my friends and family are really religious, and I can't leave. I can't even talk to them.
I feel bad for them. I feel as bad for them as homosexuals that are in the closet because they have to live a peaceful life. Man, that sucks. Man, I can understand why some people feel they have to do that. They have my sympathy. I mean, really, it's a horrible thing to have to live any sort of life. And then
I don't think we're supposed to.
no, we're not.
And
So
it's
when we
kind
have
of like,
situations that force it, it's bad.
and like basically how they want you to be in church and they want you to find a great gal and get married and lie to yourself, and then they freak out when you tell them the truth.
Well, and then here's the thing about it. You know, they talk about well, what you really need to find is just a good woman or a good man. You know, which gender you are. Obviously, they're wanting you to find the opposite gender, and you know, just find somebody to be happy with, and learn to live with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the funny part is this makes a new compound sin, because then eventually you're probably going to get divorced, because unhappy marriages end in divorce. There's happy marriages end in divorce too sometimes. It's really weird. So all of these things happen, and what they talk about not putting stumbling blocks in front of others. Guess what? That right there is a stumbling block. That is enticing you to sin. To do exactly what they say you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to get divorced. You're not supposed to do. Well, guess what? That's exactly what's going to freaking happen now, isn't it? And that's, yeah.
The other thing that I was going to say was, on my male side, I put, one of the verses that evangelicals like to preach, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. He's talking to Christians, believers, not to the country.
Isn't that Israel though?
Yeah, that is Israel, but
Yeah,
the
Israel had different
evangelicals,
rules than we have. Uh-oh.
the alarm set up,
Okay.
apparently. Don't know why. Maybe it's telling us that we should get out. But the idea is that evangelicals like to use that verse to
I'll be right back, guys. That was actually a fire alarm.
to claim that we're supposed to make repentance and revival happen in our land.
Hey, Harvey, if you would go ahead and hit stop on that.
Okay.